living water. We are here at the beautiful Santa Ana Santiago Park Nature Center, and I see that all the smart folks are seated in the last couple rows there. Nobody wants the heat, huh? Thank you for being here today, and I wanted to talk briefly about the collaboration that made this day possible for us. We want to thank the City of Santa Ana's Parks, Recreations, and Community Services Agency. We also want to thank all of our folks at the booths today, and I want to recognize a couple of people who made this day possible. I know Anthony Novella, the Community Services there you are, sir, supervisor. Let's thank him, because he's done a wonderful job with Matilde de Santiago Barros over there. She's the project coordinator for the Teen Leadership Outdoors program, who are, helping us with the setup and everything. And I want to just recognize them individually before we continue on, because I know that they're going to continue to help us out throughout the day. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to them. And if I call your name out, if you could raise your hands, that would be good. Oscar Lozano, Emilio Osorio, Alexis Sanabria, Melissa Bello, Celine Castillo, who's back there behind the tree. She's helping us with our CYPHER booth and our My Knowledge Counts campaign. We also have Sofia de Loera, back there. Kevin Ramos, there you are. Richard Zoate, Sophia Barrows, there she is, and Irvin Landa. Before we continue on, I'd like to introduce Janet King. She's a statewide advocate, and it is an honor and a privilege to have you here with us. She's going to lead us in our opening prayer. We're going to witness today from the Native American leaders that we have. We can learn how to best live harmoniously so that we have sustainable living water. So at CYPHER, CYPHER stands for Conscious Youth Promoting Health and Environmental Readiness. And so we help develop young people to become socially responsible thinkers, doers, leaders, and innovators. And we do that in two spaces. So we have the climate change resilience, and then we have building health equity for vulnerable populations. Because as you may already know, climate change disproportionately affects communities of color. So we have higher rates of chronic illnesses, we have certain effects that manifest in our communities because of climate change. And so we are looking at all the ways that we can innovate to build healthy environments, healthy neighborhoods. And we do that by tapping into the power of young people like you. We help 13 to 24-year-olds. We work with colleges, universities, going into high schools. And we help you look at different pathways and different skill sets that can not only help you succeed in school, but also help you succeed in life. So please, if you want to learn more about CYPHER and the different things that we do, please visit our booth later on. We also believe at CYPHER that the youth have the inherent power, and that typically young people are the least consulted population when it comes to things that matter the most, like the world that they're going to inherit. And I just looked over and I saw Marco Bachez's face, and he is here to help us translate. So I just want to get a feel for our participants today. Who would need Spanish translation?
Say that in Spanish. ¿Quién necesita ir en español? ¿Todos están bien en inglés?
Marco, there's Richard. Where's the other microphone? Mi nombre es Marco Vallese y como dice, aquí estoy para traducir en español. ¿Cuántos de ustedes necesitan que sea eso traducido en español? Pueden alzar sus manos. Si están cómodos con el solo inglés, ¿todos bien? Okay, perfecto. So I guess we can continue.
Very cool. Thank you. We also want to recognize the gentleman who has been instrumental in making this event happen, especially with our partnership with the Santa Ana Parks and Recreation and Community Services Agency. Gerardo Moet, please join us.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation and Community Services Agency. Soy el director de Parques, Recreaciones y Servicios Comunitarios. The agency oversees the parks, Santiago Park, the recreation centers, Jerome Recreation Center, El Salvador, all over the city, the swimming pools, the senior centers, the Santa Ana Zoo. The Santa Ana Zoo, how many of you have gone to the zoo? Okay. El zoológico también, los parques, los centros de recreaciones, los centros de personas de tercera edad, and the public library. How many of you are here from the library? All right. La biblioteca también. And it's an agency, es una agencia que tiene muchas cosas, mucha variedad. Y uno de los principios más importantes para poder convivir, it's an agency with a lot of different things, and one of the core principles in order to be able to get along with so many diverse things is respect, es respeto. En 1862, el presidente de México era Benito Juárez. ¿Quién ha oído el nombre de Benito Juárez? In 1862, the president of Mexico was Benito Juárez. And he was a full indigenous person from Mexico, and he was the president of Mexico. And because of the challenges that we're experiencing in Mexico, at the same time there was a civil war in the United States. Porque los problemas que tenía el presidente, que era 100% indígena, lo que saben Benito Juárez, tenía muchos problemas. Era el mismo tiempo que había guerra civil en Estados Unidos. Uno de sus principios primordiales era el respeto. One of his most core principles for him and for his philosophy was respect. Y ese también es un principio muy importante para la Agencia de Parques y Recreaciones. And that is also very core principle for Parks and Recreation. Be respectful. Ser respetuoso. And respect for other people's cultures, for other people's beliefs, el respeto para las otras personas diferentes, sus culturas, sus tradiciones, their traditions. We respect each other, we respect ourselves, we respect nature, we respect water. Respetamos a nosotros mismos, a otras personas, a la naturaleza, respetamos el agua. Yo crecí en Baja California, México. I grew up in Baja California, México. Very, very, very similar to this area, very arid. Muy similar como aquí, 200 millas al sur, como desierto. And water is very, very important. And es muy importante in how appropriate for this Earth Day to revolve around water. Qué apropiado es ser, que se enfoca en la celebración de la tierra en un enfoque en el agua. Water benefits all things. El agua es importante para todas las cosas. And I'm very, very honored to partner with CYPHER. Tengo muy honor para hacer esta asociación con la organización CYPHER, que ha traído a nuestra líder Janet King, and they have brought to our community our state leader Janet King. I'm very, very appreciative. So I'm going to pass the mic now back. Voy a pasar el micrófono. Muchas gracias a todos. Yo sé que aquí están de Project Pride y de la biblioteca y de la comunidad. I know that you're here from Project Pride, from the library, and from the community in general. Muchísimas gracias, and enjoy the earth. Okay.
Thank you, Gerardo. So who among you are from Back to Natives Restoration? Can we get a show of hands? Do we have any volunteers from that group? Okay. What about Project Pride?
Los de Pride.
Yes. Welcome. And Teen Leadership Outdoor Adventure again? Here we are. And Teen Space from the library? Wonderful. And the Youth Civic Engagement Interns. Do we have any from those folks here? These are all partners, community outreach partners that we have today. I also want to introduce Bao Min. He is with the Santa Ana Public Works Agency, and they always win it's the award-winning water that we enjoy in the city year after year, and he's gonna talk to us for a few minutes. As we celebrate today, what we would like to ask for you is to have an open mind and an open heart, to take a look at the indigenous knowledge and what is being done through the city, and look at ways that you yourselves can perhaps change some of the behaviors or some of the ways that we think about how we interact with our water supply, and how we can innovate to build a healthy environment. So please keep an open mind and an open heart.
Thank you. Again, my name is Bao Min. I'm with the Water Resources Division of Public Works. Our division is responsible for the operation and maintenance of all the water infrastructure. In cooperation with the local water districts and the larger consortiums, we manage and protect our watershed. In part of that, we always put an emphasis on water conservation and reducing waste, but also we focus on the other externalities that are related to water. Small decisions like choosing to drink tap water, not only is it healthy for you, it's good for the environment. The other choice over tap water is bottled water, and a lot of us don't realize that bottled water takes a lot of extra resources that are limited. The main resource in making bottled waters is oil, and we also use oil to transport and distribute those bottles as you buy them. As was mentioned earlier, our tap water is award-winning. Last year we took first place in the Berkeley Springs International Water Tasting Contest, and today we brought some of that for you today, and we've even taken the extra effort to chill it. It's on ice. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. And it tastes really, really good. So they're right over there. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Now I'd like to turn the mic over to Janet to talk about and share your knowledge with us. Thank you.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, is that how it goes? Okay. And thank you, Marcos, for putting the microphone down for me. And I just want to say thank you. He did all this work translating the story the poem that I was going to read, and translating the information on the CYPHER information brochure. He did all this work, and then ended up we didn't have to have translation after all. So thank you, Marco. Okay, my name is Janet King, and I work at the Native American Health Center in Oakland, and I'm from the Lumbee tribe, which is a Native American tribe in North Carolina. And I just want to say I'm an ordinary person. I'm not a medicine person. I'm not, I don't have any of those titles in my community. But I've been privileged to hear a lot of extraordinary things from a lot of people. So I just want to share some of the knowledge that I've been exposed to, that I've been privileged to hear from people who are extraordinary medicine people, people very knowledgeable in their culture that still know their language. So I just want to share some of the things that I think would lend to the Earth Day event that we're having today. There's some Native culture that will help us have a different lens, have a different shift in our mindset. So Earth Day will be mainstream, and we won't even have to have Earth Day anymore. Every day will be Earth Day, and that's the way it was a long time ago. I mean, embedded in Native American culture was this relationship with the earth. So every day was a Earth Day. It wasn't. I mean, we didn't have to have an environmental movement because every day was an environmental movement. Every day was an Earth Day. So yeah, a little bit more. I feel like I'm. Okay, maybe that's better. Yeah, that's good. Everybody can hear me? Okay, but before I go on, I want to, I'm gonna talk for a little while about some of the traditions that I've been exposed to, and then we're gonna open it up and have a dialogue. And then I want everybody to share your ideas and your thoughts and your, what your thinking is on how to proceed with environmental movement, how to protect the earth so the earth is here for a much longer time. So, and I want to open up to for a dialogue because I feel like all of you have knowledge that's embedded inside of you, and sometimes we just need to reawaken that knowledge. We're born knowing a lot of things, but sometimes no one's ever asked us what we thought, or we live in a culture where that kind of information is never elicited. So I want to make sure we spend some time to do some discussion. But before I go on, I would like to do some more appreciations. And I first, right off the top, I would like to acknowledge the Tongva people who are indigenous to the land of Santa Ana. And we do have a Tongva family that's going to be coming and sharing their traditions with us. Are they here yet? They are? Okay. Where are they at?
They're getting ready.
Okay. Okay. So we do have some people that are indigenous to Santa Ana, the Tongva people. So I just want to first give appreciation for them for allowing us to be on their land. And this is a tradition that's in Native American culture to always honor the host of whose land that you're on. And we're on Tongva land. And do people know about the Tongva tribe? Have you ever heard of the Tongva tribe before today? Well, I want to make sure you know about the Tongva tribe. When I'm from Oakland, and whenever I do any opening, usually my opening remarks are thanking the Ohlonies for allowing us to be on their land. So we're on Tongva land, so I just want to make sure everybody knows that. And we're trespassers on that land. We did not ask permission to be here. There was no legal sales of the Tongva land to anybody else, so we really need to honor the hosts. Just like when we go to the home of somebody else, we honor the people who are welcoming us into their home. They might have fed us, they might have clothed us, they might have gave us a bed to sleep in. We honored who's ever hosting us. And so the Tongva people are hosting us. And so I'm really glad that they're here and going to be sharing some more of their traditions. I also want to acknowledge Mona Stonefish. She's an elder that comes to our community in Oakland, and she's the one that gave us some guidance about how to produce today's event. Mona Stonefish is, she's a Potawatomi elder from Canada, and about a year ago, I told her that we were going to do an event to honor the water. And she told me, she instructed me to contact the tribe that's indigenous to the area that we're going to be having the event. And so I just want to thank her for giving me that guidance. And then also I'd like to thank Bong, or some of you might know him as Russell Vergara, for listening to that guidance and producing the event today where we're going to have some of the indigenous people from here to be part of this presentation. And also what I'd like to thank Rondine and Anthony. We were on conference calls together, and we were planning this event. And in Native American and Native culture, the ceremony starts not the day of the ceremony. It starts when you start thinking about it and start talking about it. So we've been in ceremony for a long time, and these people went through a lot of changes, anxieties, nervousness, and a lot of struggle to bring today's event to you. So I would like to thank all of them for doing that and for having this vision to have an Earth Day event to honor Native traditions. So I just want to thank all those people for going the extra mile to make sure we have that we're going to be able to learn about Native traditions to understand how we can better care for the earth and care for water as our relative. And this is very meaningful to be inclusive of Native traditions. at this at the Earth Day event because for a long time, the last 500 years, the Native Americans have been in interaction with the federal government. All of the policies towards Native Americans have been to squash Native American culture and to squash Native American identity. And culture was actually like illegal to practice Native traditions. And so, like in the prayer, I was thanking the people who went through a lot of struggle and went through a lot of risk to keep some of these traditions alive. That's why we still have them today to talk about them. Some were killed for practicing ceremony. Some were killed for talking about Native values. So I'm really grateful to our ancestors for having the courage to bring these traditions into the present. And I'm not going to talk about the federal policies, but I will mention one. There was a time where Native children were taken from their families and put in boarding schools. And the idea of being in the boarding schools away from their families was, again, to kill the Native identity. And one of the things that was done there was to take the language away. So if Native children were caught speaking their language, they were punished so severely that they didn't want to speak it again. And this was at a time when that was the only language you knew. You didn't know English yet. So for some children, they just stopped talking because they were very young and they didn't understand what was going on, and they thought they were being punished just for talking. And there were some children that were very, very wise. They would find quiet places at the boarding schools, and they would quietly talk to each other in their language so they wouldn't forget their language. And I'm telling you this story because during the World War II, that's when the United States was at war with many other nations. One nation was Japan. And they had this group of people, they called it top secret. They called them the Navajo Code Talkers. And one of the reasons why the United States was able to win that war was because the Japanese could not decode the Navajo Code Talkers. And the Navajos, that language survived the boarding schools. They tried to kill that language in the boarding schools, but it survived. And because it survived, all of Americans survived. So it wasn't a language that just preserved and keep the Navajo alive. It kept all of us alive. So something that was trying to get killed, something that was trying to be erased is what saved our lives. So I feel that way too with Native traditions. We're being informed by Native traditions all the time. It doesn't always get acknowledged that way. But our Native traditions, our Native American culture is what is continuing to inform us, to keep us alive. And so that's how I feel about our attitudes to the earth. One of the things I like about Native American culture is, again, it was so embedded, caring for the earth and seeing earth as mother, seeing everybody as relatives. You did not have to have an Earth Day. You did not have to have environmental movement. Every day was an Earth Day. Every day was an environmental movement. One of the things that we're taught in Native culture is that we're stewards of the earth. The people are the stewards of the earth. The people aren't the creators. The way I've been taught is that the people did not weave the web of life. The people are just a strand in the web. So we're not superior to our other relatives, to the animals, to the plants, to the elements. We are just among this family. So our sacred responsibility was to be stewards of the earth. The reason why people were made, in a lot of the creation stories, people were made last. They weren't made first. They weren't made to dominate or to have dominion over the other parts of the creation. We were made last to be stewards and to be carrying of the earth. And as a matter of fact, it was the animals it was the animals and the plants, according to our tradition, many of our creation stories, it was the animals and the plants that made the earth ready for us to live. So we have a lot to be grateful for to all of our relatives, not just our human beings, but to our relatives that are animals, that are plants, that are elements, and that are in the mineral world. And so I want to talk a little bit about that concept of being relatives. You'll hear this concept a lot in many tribes, all my relations. And in the Lakota language, it's called mitakuase. And so when it translates to all my relations, but it loses a lot of meaning in the translation. So I'm going to try to recapture some of what's lost in the translation. When you say oh mitakuase, you're saying all my relations, but again, it doesn't just mean human beings. We're all related to each other. We're related to all of creation, the animals, the plants, the elements, the minerals, the stars even. So we're all related, and we're all in relationship to each other. We're all living, to have perfect balance, we need to acknowledge that interdependence and to live harmoniously. So I think this concept of seeing each other as relative is what's missing in our recent viewpoints towards the earth, towards the water, seeing it as a resource to exploit, as something that's a it. So we need to, I think, change our thinking back to seeing water as our relative. I have a friend that was, I talked to a lot before, when I knew I was going to come to make this presentation, I talked to a lot of people from many different tribes to get their viewpoints. So I'm trying to just, as much as I can, just be a spokesperson of all those viewpoints. And I was talking to a friend of mine that's Lakota. And I was asking her, in the Lakota tradition, how was water viewed? And she said it's female. The water is female and the earth is female. And she says in her tribe, they don't even call each other by their names. They call each other by their relationships. So she said, she lives in Oakland right now, but she says when she goes back to her reservation in South Dakota, she doesn't hear people calling her name. She hears people calling her by her relationship to them. Like you hear Tokoja a lot. Tokoja means grandchild. She doesn't hear her name. She hears people will call her grandchild, they'll call her niece, they'll call her sister, they'll call her cousin. So every time they talk to each other, they're acknowledging their relationship to each other. So when you talk to each other that way, you're always expressing reverence for each other. You're always expressing my responsibility to you as your auntie, your uncle, your grandma, your grandpa. So I'm spending some time talking about this because I think, again, this is what I think is missing from the world that we live in and the world that we've been indoctrinated in and conditioned in, was where we're missing the relationship part to each other and to the rest of the world, the animals, the plants, the elements. So I think by restoring that idea of relationship, again, we're going to have a healthier interaction with the earth and with the water. And just to give you one example, I've been in sweat lodge ceremonies, and the rocks, we bring in hot rocks into the lodge, and the rocks are called grandfathers. So by calling the rocks grandfathers, it's not like, if you just call them rocks, like, get the pile of rocks and move them over here and dump them over there. You would never talk like that. You would carefully pick up those grandfathers, and you would carefully bring them over there. You bring them in the lodge and you sprinkle some medicine on them and thank them for coming in. So again, if you have this idea of relationship, we're going to restore the knowledge that we had once before, and we won't have the imbalance that we're experiencing today. So that's why I'm spending a lot of time talking about relationship. It's not just cliche. It's not just poetic language. It's a transforming shift in thought that I think we need to have. And it's transforming in the modern world because we've been raised in a culture that's very money driven, and it's absent of the relationship driven. So that's why I'm belaboring the issue. So that's why if I'm starting to sound like a broken record, it's because it's different from what we're used to hearing. So I'm going to read a poem. And this is a poem called When Earth Became a It. And it's by a friend of mine named Mary Lou, and her last name is Awiata, and she's Cherokee, and she's passed on into the spirit world right now. And she wrote this many years ago. We all are having some awareness that the earth is really hot right now. And she wrote this poem 30 years ago. So it was hot 30 years ago, and it's hotter even now. And the poem is called When Earth Becomes an It. When the people call Earth Mother, they take with love, and with love give back, so that all may live. When the people call Earth It, they use her, consume her strength, then the people die. Already the sun is hot, out of season. Our mother's breast is going dry. She is taking all green into her heart and will not turn back until we call her by her name. So again, we need to remember that Earth is our mother. It's not an it. It's not something to consume, something to exploit, something to frack, something to do all the things that we're doing to the earth. And that's why we spend a lot of time, we revised the flyer a few times for today's event to make sure we acknowledge water as a her. She's female and she is our relative. And we come from her. A lot of our creation stories, we come out of the water. So she's not here for us, we actually came from her. So it's kind of interesting that we're talking about now how to care for her when we actually came from her. So we came from the water, a lot of our creation stories. So on the note of stories, I want to share another story, and this is a story about how water came to us. And before I share the story, before I leave the idea about Earth being our mother. So how many of you all here have mothers? Let me ask you this question. Would you ever sell your mother? Show of hands, who would sell their mother? If you had bills to pay, or if you had a bad habit, would you sell your mother to get money? And nobody's going to be selling their mother. We have people selling our mother. We have people digging into our mother. We have people fracking our mother. We have people doing awful things to our mother that is causing earthquakes, or we never had earthquakes before. Fracking causes earthquakes, or the fracking uses precious drinking water to heat up parts of, under the Earth's core to get these minute supplies of oil. So we're doing a lot of things that are very harmful. And if we thought of the Earth again as our mother, I don't think we'd be doing these things so easily as we're doing them now. And we do the opposite of our mothers. We fight for our mothers. We defend our mothers. We don't exploit our mothers. So I'm going to share a story right now about Raven. And this is a story from the northwestern tribes where the Kwakiutls are. And this is a story about how water came to us. A long time ago, there was some water on the earth, but it was in one spot. And it was a spot that was hard to get to. It was inside a cave, and there was only one hole up at the top of the cave, and you'd have to go down, and then you would have to get the water, and then you would have to get back up through the cave and get out the hole. And nobody could do it because it was difficult to get in, it was difficult to get out, and also once you were in the cave, there was this monster, this fire-breathing monster that would attack you. If you were able to get past all of his barriers and get in the cave and get some of the water, you were sure not to get back out because he would blow fire on you and you would disintegrate, and the water that you're trying to escape with, it wouldn't happen. So one day the animals were all together and they were talking about how hot the earth was and how much they needed the water to be distributed around the earth so the earth can cool down, so the people that are coming, the people hadn't came yet, so the people that are coming can sustain themselves on earth. So they were all talking and they were all trying to come up with some plans and some strategies of how to get the water distributed around the whole earth. How do we get it away from this fire-breathing monster that's hoarding the water and not sharing it with everybody else? And so Raven was listening to all these stories and kind of taking into consideration all the things that he's hearing, how people made attempts and were not able to get out of the cave with the water. And so he stepped up and he says, let me try this. I'm gifted with the gift of being able to fly. I can fly into the top of the cave where the hole is, the opening to go down into the cave where the water is. And I'll figure it out when I get there what I need to do. I might need to be very quiet. I might need to be sneaky. I might need to catch the water monster when he's asleep. I'm gonna do this because we have this water, but it's not distributed around the earth. And we need this water to cool down the earth, and we need this water to sustain us so the people that are coming will be able to have life on earth. So, and at this time of the story, Raven, who right now is a bird that's black, was a bird that was white. So he flew down into the hole that was at the top of the cave, and he flew down, and he saw this most beautiful, luscious pure, clean, cool water. And so what he did, he drank it all up. And so his body is engorged with the water. And so he was lucky when he flew down into the hole of the cave, the water monster was sleeping. So he didn't even have to he didn't have to have any special strategies to try to defend himself from the monster, because the monster was sleeping. And so he drank up all of the water, and so he was very engorged with the water. So he's flying up to the top of the cave to escape. He's going to go through the top of the hole in the cave, and he's going to fly around the earth with all the water in his belly, and he's going to spit out a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit over here, and then make the whole circumference of the earth, and make all of these well-distributed streams and lakes and oceans. But what happened after he was engorged with the water, the fire monster woke up and saw that that the raven had drank up all the water, and he was trying to get out the hole. And so because the raven was so engorged with the water, he couldn't fit through the hole as well as he did when he came down. So he's fluttering around, and he's trying to find his way out, and he's trying to turn his body different directions, and he's trying to get out from the hole. And the water monster, whose MO is to not share the water, to breathe his fire on everybody who's trying to get the water, he starts doing that to Raven. And today, that's why Raven is black and not white. And so Raven, he managed to get out of the hole, but because of the trauma of being fired on and having this fire-breathing monster breathe on him as he was trying to escape, when he came out of the hole, he wasn't able to do this controlled flying around the earth and evenly distributing the water. He just sort of, and the water just went all over. And so that's why we have big bodies of water and small bodies of water, but that's the story of how we got the water. And so Raven today bears the warrior marks of having this battle with the water monster and getting the water around the world. So this is how precious our water is. It didn't come to us easy, and now we need to hang on to it. We need to return to being stewards and protecting this water. And what's interesting to me about this story, the reason why I wanted to tell you, is we have water monsters again. The earth is heating up again. The earth is hot again, like it was in this story. And when I think of the fracking, someone recently just explained to me the fracking. You heat up large amounts of water to get the oil out, and you have to dig way deep into the earth. And the parts of the lands that have fracking on it, they're having earthquakes when they never had earthquakes before. And they're having a lot of problems with pollution, and they have a shortage of water. So again, the water monster is alive and well, and we need to be like Raven. We need to find ways to struggle with the monster so the water can be preserved. So just like that story, the earth is suffering again from too much fire. And so there's another story I'd like to share with everybody. This is a story that comes from the tribes in Venezuela. And it's a story about elder brother and younger brother. And this story, again, the people came from the water. That's our birth of, that's our origin, a place of origin is coming from the water. And the first two people that were born, it was an elder brother and a younger brother. And the elder brother complied with all the protocol of being a caretaker of the earth. And the younger brother had different ideals. He didn't want to comply. He didn't want to honor all the rules that been taught to take care of the earth. He had different ideals, and he had a special gift. He had the gift of fire. And he was using his gift for ways that were causing destruction on the earth. And he had the gift of like heating up metals and making metal tools. And so again, he had the gift of fire, but the way he was using his gift wasn't a way that was producing balance in the world. And so he was talked to by the elders and told, you need to use the gift in a way that's honoring the earth, that's enhancing our interdependence on each other, that's helping us live harmoniously. You are not using your gift in a way that's helpful. You're using your gift in a way that's harmful. But younger brother did not want to comply, did not want to take the advice of his elders. So he was banned from the Garden of Eden. He was banned from that place and told to go to other shores. You're not helpful here. We've tried to tell you what we need you to do to be helpful, and you're not complying. So he was banned to another place. And the story was told, the prophecy of that story was that younger brother would be coming back here again, and we would have the same problems of too much heat in the world and too much fire. And I think that prophecy has come true. I think we are again experiencing too much heat and too much fire. So I'm doing okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you don't. That's okay. I don't want you to have to stand there.
I was going to sit down.
Oh, okay, all right, that's fine.
Is that good right there?
Yeah, thanks. What a nice relative. Thanks for taking care of me. So, I was talking to another friend. Like, again, I was trying to gather lots of traditional knowledge from many different tribes. And he was bringing me some information from some of the tribes in South America. And he was saying in their traditions, fire is male, and air is male, and water is female, and earth is female. Oh, okay, I have some over here. Delicious, pure water. So I thought that was an interesting concept too, and he just talked to me this week. And before he talked to me, he said, there's no accidents. Everything happens for a reason and a purpose. I said, I think there was a reason and a purpose for you to tell me that, because I'm going to share it today. That, in his tradition, some things are seen as female and some things are seen as male. And again, we're suffering from too much male energy and not enough female energy. So I think, again, we need to incorporate the female in our values, in our practices, in our ways that we live our lives, so we can have more balance. And again, a long time ago, before Europeans came over here, before there was other cultures over here, the women had a great importance in many tribes. They made really important decisions. They even made decisions if the men go to war. So I think, again, we need to incorporate the female value and not have the imbalance of too much male energy. Like my friend was saying, that the fire is male energy. So I'm almost done. Thanks for being good listeners. So I just want to say a few things about CYPHER. And again, Rondine said that CYPHER stands for Conscious Youth Promoting Health and Environmental Readiness. And I think it's very important to be focusing on our youth. When the United States and tribes were having a lot of negotiations with each other, when tribes were ceding lands to the federal government, there was great long speeches by these great Native American leaders. And one of the leaders said, he was really sad because he was ceding a lot of land from his tribe to the federal government. And one of his speeches he was pleading with the federal government, teach your children to care for the earth the way that we have. And so I'm really pleased that CYPHER is focusing on the youth. We need to teach our children to care for the earth. And it needs to be a teaching, and it needs to be something set aside, because again, it doesn't come like if you were a Native person a long time ago, you didn't have to have it staged. You didn't have to have an environmental awareness classroom. Every day was environmental awareness. So I'm really glad that CYPHER is here and focusing on the youth. And when the youth, if you learn about how to care for the earth when you're young, then you're spending a lifetime doing it. You're not spending a lifetime. You haven't lived half your life, and then you learn that it's important. You're learning that it's important from day one. And when you learn that caring for the earth is important as a child, then you create your own knowledge. I remember teaching my daughter that the earth is our mother and we need to care for her. And so she would ask me things. Mom, when you're digging in the garden, does it feel like a massage on the earth? Does our mother feel like we're massaging her? So it's like when you instill these ideals in children, then they think about it a lot, because children have a lot of time to think, and they're able to develop a practice that's honoring of those teachings that they're getting very young. So I think it's a very important thing that CYPHER is focusing on the youth. Also, I think CYPHER is a Native ideal. It's coming from the land, even though it found the leaders of CYPHER. Thank you for being open, because I think it is the land that spoke to you and gave you these ideals. It's what I believe. And am I getting close to the time where I need to wrap up? No? Okay. Also, I want to, the campaign, My Knowledge Counts. I really like that campaign because, especially for Native people, for a long time, our knowledge did not count. Again, they were trying to destroy Native culture, and they were trying to say that Native knowledge had no use in the modern world. It has a lot of use in the modern world. So, so I'm glad that there's this campaign of My Knowledge Counts. And it's just not Native knowledge, it's all of you. I think all of us, if we were left to our own devices, human beings, we would be good and kind to each other, and we would see each other as relatives. But we're not left to our own devices. We're brainwashed. We're conditioned and by a money-driven culture. So we forget that basic human nature to each other. Some people think human nature is basically competitive, evil. I'm going to get mine, so you don't get yours. I don't think that's true. I think basic human nature is giving and kind and generous, and we see each other as relatives. So I like the campaign My Knowledge Counts because it's reawakening us to something that's already embedded inside of us. So I'm really glad that it's focusing on young people. If you talk to young people, they have great solutions and great ideas, but a lot of times we never even ask them what they think. And we never ask anybody who's not a leader what they think. So I really am very appreciative of My Knowledge Counts campaign. And another note on basic human nature, being kind, being generous, seeing us each other as relatives. There's a custom that the Northwestern tribes practice. It was called potlatch. And the idea of the potlatch was to outgive each other. And so in our modern world, you just give the bare minimum. You just barely get what you have to give so you can be considered, you did your part. And so the potlatches was you went beyond that. You try to outgive your neighbor. And the federal government outlawed them. They outlawed them because it didn't ring with the idea of capitalism. They were very threatened by that idea of the potlatch, where you're being very generous and you're giving things to somebody else. You're redistributing the wealth, so there's not a chronic poor population. So potlatches were actually outlawed, and potlatch was all about giving. And so again, I think that knowledge, that impetus to be good and kind and generous to each other, it's inside of us, but we need to reawaken it, and we need to decondition ourselves from the money-making driven culture that we've all been exposed to and immersed in. So I just want to go over 3 takeaways. I learned this from my grandson, who thought I should make 3 takeaways. So one takeaway is the water is our relative, and our ability to survive is going to be of great consequence if the water is gone. So we need to see the water as a relative. And again, we didn't come here for the water. We emerged from the water. The water is here for us. So it is our sacred responsibility to care for the water. The other takeaway is that people are stewards of the earth. We are not the creator of the earth. We're not the controller of the earth. We are supposed to be a strand in the web of all the creation. And the last takeaway is to reawaken our basic human nature of being good to each other, living harmoniously with each other, and having interdependence on each other. Okay, I'd like to open it up for discussion now. And I think we have another microphone. So any ideas? Anybody want to share some thoughts, some comments, ask a question? You can even disagree with me. Okay, thank you. I think there's a lot of things that are available to do that, to be helpful to the earth. Or CYPHER, Rondine, do you want to answer this? And while Rondine is coming up here, I think returning the sacred, I mean, we think of the earth as a scientific entity with minerals and H2O and all that. But I think, returning some of the spirituality back to a relationship with the earth, I think is real important.
Thank you, Janet. Can we please give a round of applause for Janet King? Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today. And there are a lot of things that we can do. So one of the programs that CYPHER has is called Sustainable Earth Decathlon. And what that is, we will have it on November 12th and 13th this year, either at LA Metro or at USC. And we invite teams, typically college age. We've had high school teams present their ideas on how we can innovate and help build healthy neighborhoods. So think about in your daily actions how you can make things more efficient, more sustainable. And then with that idea, with that seed of an idea, what can you create? What invention can you come up with to help solve a specific issue so that we could be more sustainable? So for example, for water, at the Sustainable Earth Decathlon, we had a lot of submissions on agricultural technology. Can we desalinate water to use it for our agricultural lands? How do we conserve water? Because with the drought that we have, you've probably heard that Governor Jerry Brown announced a $1 billion fund to help address the drought that we are going through. And with some of the ideas that they had, with the drought, some probably don't realize this, but some farms can only use half the land space because they're not allotted any water to sustain those farms. So if you're only working with half the land, you're not getting as big a harvest as you were before. So, some of the students came up with agricultural technology, water desalination, how to come up with a garden at your home, how to support local farmers, so then that way we don't have to haul the produce into trucks that emit greenhouse gas emissions into the air to get it to the store. Maybe be open to the not so pretty fruit that you can grow in your backyard. It doesn't have to be a perfectly red strawberry, does it? Or a perfectly red tomato. Those are where a lot of our waste come from, is actually within the food that we eat. So if you want to break it down to the nuts and bolts, how many bathtubs full of water do you think it takes to grow one green apple? A guess? How many? 7 bathtubs full of water for one apple. So please think about the next time you only half eat an apple, okay? What about hamburgers? Like one hamburger patty. How many tubs full of water do you think it takes to come up with just one hamburger patty? 16. And so if you think about it, the more hamburgers we eat, the more water we consume. And if you throw it away, there that goes, right? So at the nuts and bolts of it, there are many things that we can do on an individual basis to sustain our planet, right? And to take care of her. Yes, sir.
When I was in the Navy, our ships would desalinate our own water. So, and this has been years we've had these technologies. Why can't we use that technology in California? Why can't we desalinate? We've got a whole ocean out there.
Actually, they're building a desalination plant in Carlsbad. It's about a $1 billion project, and that's going to be to supply the residents of San Diego County. Santa Barbara opened up their own before, and they had to shut it down because it started raining again, so we didn't need that much water from a desalination plant. So, those are technologies that are being looked at to supply us, But I think more importantly, not just with water, but with technology, it could be software applications, it could be clean technology, green technology, building materials. Like if somebody can create a building material that is more sustainable than the existing products that we're using, right? That's something that we could look at, and that's something that every single one of you can innovate. And you know, at the core of it all, CYPHER believes that each community can come up with its own defined solution. So its own community defined solution, and it can be small scale to address that specific community's issue. And then you can expand it out. Because what we invite you to do is to take a look at the innovation, the actions, the behaviors that you can take on, and then share whatever knowledge you have learned here today and take that back to your friends, right? You're very powerful leaders. You have friends, you have a core group that you could share this knowledge with. And that's what we want you to do, is to have that ripple effect, so that then that way the knowledge that we shared today can be expanded to other communities, because we are all in this together. Yes, you have a question?
Oh, no, I was just going to comment about desalinization. It's just really expensive, so it brings the cost up for individuals who are purchasing water. And then it also produces lots of brine waste, and there's not a solution of where to put that waste because the landfill's already kind of filling up. And then if we put it back into the ocean, it would harm marine life, so that's not really a solution. So there's not really like the right technology. It also takes tons of energy, too. So that's part of the reason why it's so expensive.
I have a question. I've been studying a lot about permaculture and sustainable system, and this is kind of like the conversation that's really difficult, is what you were saying about Mother Earth. So how do we like address technology and also like debunking the idea that, you know, it's all about science, but then you look at nature, also has solutions. So how do you approach kind of that conversation?
Thank you, James. Oh, by the way, shout out to James Castillo from Flowerman Productions for helping videotape this event today. I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things that we're doing at CYPHER is starting our urban indoor farm. It's called Fresh. A lot of the world's food production goes to waste, about 30 to 40% of it, before it even hits a boat or a truck, because it's not pretty enough, it's not the right size, it's not the right shape, right color, so they just toss it, right? And that's just at the harvest stage. And then you have to worry about the transportation and how that impacts it if you put produce on trucks and ships to get here. And then we waste some more before it hits the grocery stores. And then whatever you don't want to buy at the grocery store because they're not pretty enough or big enough or the right size, that also goes to waste. So what we are trying to do is advance Fresh, because we need to reduce our carbon footprint. So we're calling it the Food Print Reduction and Environmental Sustainability Hub. So that's an initiative that we've started, and it's still in the works. So hopefully within the next few months, few years, we'll see that come to pass. But it utilizes aquaponics, and we want it to also utilize hydroponics. So then that way we can conserve about, like 80-90% of the water that would traditionally be consumed in a regular farm. So that's one of the ways that we're doing it at CYPHER, and hopefully you could join us in that initiative and support us. Any other questions?
And sometimes the science is proving what we already knew, but we just didn't express it in scientific terms. Like, saying, the creation stories that Native people have, that people emerged from the water or we came from the water. I mean, science is now originated from the water, we might be even related to the whales, the mammals, the dolphins, so I feel like sometimes the science proves the indigenous knowledge. And sometimes it's just a way of talking about it. We keep those two fields separate, but they're not so separate. We just don't use scientific language when we tell stories, but we are talking about scientific things. And the scientific language doesn't talk about stories with peoples and animals in it and relationships, but that's what they're talking about. And we always knew that we were stardust. You know, Native people always knew that, and there's lots of stories about that. Now the science is starting to prove that we are stardust. So I just feel like either the two spheres, the scientific sphere and the indigenous knowledge sphere, they can come together, and they have come together. They just don't know they're talking the same language. They're just using different terms to refer to the same phenomena.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes. You're absolutely right. That's why I say it's so important to return to the sacredness of our responsibility to the earth. And you're right, when there was a substance that was used, you used every part of it. You didn't waste a bit of it. And I'm thinking now, right now, the buffalo, you know, in the Lakotas, the tribe up there, they would eat the buffalo. They didn't eat the buffalo. They used the buffalo robes for housing. They used the buffalo robes for bedding. They used the back of the legs, the sinew for thread. They used the bones for tools. And they had a sacred agreement with the buffaloes. The buffaloes talked to the Lakotas and said, yeah, okay, you can use our bodies this way, but you need to honor and respect us this way. So it wasn't just, we're going to take and exploit. It's like, thank you for giving us. We're going to hold our promise to you and respect the remains of your bodies this way. So there's needs to be a sacred agreement. And I guess in the scientific world, that could be described as an interdependence. But again, the two worlds are merged more than we think. And thank you for your examples. Thank you. And Janet also mentioned My Knowledge Counts. It's CYPHER's new campaign, so I want to talk about that for a few minutes here. Basically, hashtag My Knowledge Counts. If you follow us on @CYPHERYouth, we can connect. And we invite you at some point this afternoon to please go visit our CYPHER table, where you can take photographs, and we can tweet them and connect to the United Nations World Program of Action for Youth. So they're at #YouthNow. And basically, My Knowledge Counts is a campaign that promotes community-defined solutions that address the warming of our planet. And indigenous knowledge matters in finding these solutions. And so there are two ways that we could do the My Knowledge Counts campaign. The first one is the ground campaign, the other is the Twitter campaign. So the ground campaign really is a 3-step process. Number 1, choose your piece of the puzzle. Number 2 is mobilize and engage others. And number 3 is document your work. And we have these flyers to, that give you the directions, but basically it's involving your community, involving your friends. And remember that if you don't document it by putting it online, then it doesn't exist, right? Sometimes that's the belief with our policymakers, especially. So what I do at CYPHER, I haven't introduced myself. My name's Rondine Makadag, and I'm the General Counsel, and I'm also the Director of Strategic Partnerships for CYPHER. And what that means really is just getting all of the different groups together to the same table so that everybody is heard. And so I build bridges between government agencies, our leaders, our industry leaders, and young people. Because like we said earlier, young people are typically the folks that don't get consulted. And so if we want to be heard, we have to speak up, and CYPHER provides that platform for you so that we can close the gap between what the policymakers need to hear and what you are saying. So please let us know if you have any concerns. Again, we are in environmental resilience, climate resilience space, and building healthy communities, especially for communities of color. And so, let's see, the Twitter campaign, you can go to our website, cypher-international.org, and follow the directions there on how you can join our Twitter campaign. And I'd also like to call on our teen leadership outdoor group. There are many, many ways that you can participate, and I'd like to call the leaders up here to please share the good work that they're doing and what you can participate in.
Hello, my name is Abel de la Cruz, and we are the Teen Leadership Outdoor Adventure Program. And our goal is to inspire leadership and to advocate for the preservation of our natural environment while providing meaningful contributions to the community. Our goal here is to preserve, protect, and enhance our natural environments, especially our water resources and our waterways. One of our aims is to increase environmental awareness to ensure that our natural resources are protected for generations to come. One of the greatest efforts here at Santiago Park is the regular hosting of creek cleanups, where we make sure to remove any debris or other pollutants that could affect our waterways in a negative way. We encourage you all to participate in your community, to join efforts to advocate for the protection of our resources. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak on behalf of the group? Another round of applause for our volunteers who's helped set everything up for us today. Thank you.
What Nine is talking about, again, it's just reflective of those old stories, you know, like the story I told about Raven going to get the water. The way that started was the animals got together and started talking among each other. And then they just came up with this pool of ideals, and then they came up with a strategy. So the Twitter, the writing, the doing, it's again, it's like having that council meeting that these animals were having. So again, there's the science and the folklore are really one and the same if we just don't see it that way. But great ideals come out of people talking to each other. Sometimes the best inventions came out of a conversation over dinner. So when we talk to each other, we bounce off of each other, we elicit each other's creativity. So even though it might not seem like all that, it is all that. By talking to each other and sharing each other's ideals, great things happen. Because we all have great minds, because we all are part of creation. And so when we talk to each other, we create a lot of good solutions. So My Knowledge Counts campaign is really a sacred process, even though we might not be thinking of it as a sacred process.
Thank you. And I want to ask the audience, how many of you folks volunteer already? Show of hands. A lot of you. A lot of you. So find what you're passionate about and then share it with the rest of us, right? Because again, we need that conversation to continue and to be heard up to the policymakers, or next to the policymakers, I guess. Next up, I want to introduce Lazaro Arvisu, Jr., and he's going to be sharing songs with us that originate amongst natives of Southern California. His background is in visual arts and in musicology, and he has dedicated his life to performance and research. After that, we're going to be watching the Tovima perform and to learn with them. So please give him a few moments to get up on the stage to share his music with us. And thank you again to Janet and to Richard. Thank you for being here today, and we'll see you again soon. Please to take a picture with us for our My Knowledge Counts campaign. And as we have learned where the foxes live, and where the skunk lives, and where the rock meets the water, may we go forward respecting our land, respecting each other, and really figuring out how do we make this a better world, right? Because there's a phrase that we go by, which says that we don't need to create a better world for our children. We need to develop better children who will create a better world. And so please keep that in mind as you share, with your friends, with your peers, with your coworkers, with your family. How do we create healthier neighborhoods for us? Because the power is within you. And again, let's please make our way to the CYPHER table and take a picture for My Knowledge Counts. Thanks, everyone.